Namaste and welcome to the AI Samachar for January 18th, 2025. Get ready for a deep dive into the most fascinating news stories from across India. We've got a stack of today's newspapers right here, ready to go.
It's amazing to see how all these stories connect, from politics and business to even Bollywood. They really help paint a picture of where India's headed.
Okay, let's unpack this. You mentioned politics.
Yeah.
And it looks like the president is really making a statement with this year's Republic Day at Home event.
Yeah. It's all about South India this year, the ceremonies, the food, the performers. It's a very deliberate move to highlight local expertise and, make sure everyone feels included.
That's really interesting, especially since we've also got the Delhi Assembly elections heating up. Our sources say the BJP is going all out with their manifesto. Cheaper meals, bigger pensions, the whole 9 yards.
It does seem like they're pulling out all the stops to win over voters. But the Aam Aadmi Party, or AAP, is crying foul. They're accusing the Election Commission of basically letting the BJP get away with violations.
So we've got the BJP, who are currently in power nationally, going up against the AAP, who are in power in Delhi. What kind of violations are we talking about?
Well, the AAP is pointing to things like the BJP handing out shoes and saris as evidence, claiming it's an unfair way to influence voters.
It sounds like these elections are going to be a close race. And speaking of controversy, Uttarakhand's chief minister is pushing ahead with plans for the Uniform Civil Code. That's the UCC, right?
That's right. He wants to implement it by the end of January, but it's facing some serious pushback. Muslim organizations are gearing up for legal challenges, arguing it's unconstitutional and leaves certain communities out in the cold.
And on top of all this, it looks like the Supreme Court is stepping in on multiple fronts.
Absolutely. They've put a hold on the Delhi High Court's order that was forcing the AAP government to sign the Ayushman Bharat healthcare scheme.
Right.
This is a big deal because it's part of this ongoing power struggle between the central government and Delhi's government.
They've also weighed in on the issue of firecrackers, haven't they?
Yes, the Supreme Court has asked Uttar Pradesh and Haryana to think about a permanent ban on firecrackers in the national capital region, the area around Delhi. This comes after appeals from firecracker manufacturers, but the courts made it clear that the environment comes first.
Sounds like they're taking a strong stance. What about the situation in Tamil Nadu? It looked like there's some tension between the government there and the governor.
There is. It's all about appointing vice chancellors for universities. The Supreme Court's basically told them to sort it out by January 22nd, or else they'll step in themselves.
So you've got internal party politics, clashes between the central government and states, and the Supreme Court trying to mediate it all. It paints a pretty complex picture of the political landscape right now.
It does. And as we move from the world of politics to business and economy, there's one event that's capturing everyone's attention. The Auto Expo.
What's got everyone buzzing this year? Any big reveals?
Electric vehicles. EVs were the stars of the show. Even big car companies that have always made traditional cars are jumping on the EV bandwagon. They're launching new electric models and investing heavily in charging stations.
It sounds like a sign of the times. And our prime minister even chimed in, calling India's auto industry future ready.
Exactly. He sees this as a huge opportunity for growth, and honestly, it's hard to disagree. But while the Auto Expo paints a rosy picture, not every business is having such a smooth ride.
What do you mean?
Well, Tata Steel is in a bit of a tug-of-war with the Supreme Court over a ruling on taxes related to land with minerals. They've filed what's called a curative petition, hoping the court will change its mind.
So they're hoping for a second chance. What's at stake for them?
This ruling could have a big financial impact on Tata Steel. On the other hand, we've got Reliance Industries. They seem to be doing pretty well despite the general economic slowdown.
What's their secret sauce?
Their third quarter results exceeded everyone's expectations, especially their retail and oil-to-chemicals businesses. Reliance is definitely a company to keep an eye on in the coming months.
Interesting to see how different companies are navigating these economic waters. Speaking of navigating, Ashok Leyland, the commercial vehicle giant, seems to be charting an ambitious course.
They are. They're expanding aggressively, both here in India and overseas. They're rolling out new products, venturing into new areas of the market, and setting some pretty ambitious export targets, especially in Southeast Asia.
So they're thinking big. It seems like a lot of companies are feeling bullish about India's potential.
They are. And HSBC, the global banking giant, is another example. They're aiming to become the top international bank in India, focusing especially on the wealth management market, which is growing rapidly.
They're catering to a specific clientele then.
Yes, they're designing products specifically for affluent Indians. It shows that international players are seeing real opportunity in India's economic growth.
Okay, let's switch gears for a moment and take a look at what's happening in the world of crime and investigations. There's been an update on the Saif Ali Khan stabbing case.
Unfortunately, no luck catching the suspect yet. Despite new CCTV footage and a police sketch, he's still on the run. Police think he's a seasoned criminal who deliberately changed clothes to throw them off his trail.
That's quite a twist. In Delhi, it seems the police have foiled a murder plot straight out of a crime thriller.
Yes, they arrested 4 members of the Naveen Katiaka Pehelwan gang who were planning to kill a rival. It seems there's a turf war brewing in the city's underworld.
It's a reminder that beneath the surface of everyday life, there's a whole other world of crime and intrigue. And Haryana is taking a bold step against corruption, publicly naming hundreds of allegedly corrupt officials.
That's right. They've named 370 land officials and 170 middlemen. They even revealed the bribe rates they were allegedly charging. It's a strong message. But will it actually lead to real change? That's the big question.
It's certainly a bold move. Let's take a break from all this intensity and look at some good news from the world of sports and entertainment. Chess champion Koneru Humpy is celebrating a big win.
Not only did she just win her 2nd World Rapid Chess Championship, but she's doing it all while being a mom. She's an inspiration both on and off the chessboard.
She's definitely setting a high bar.
Yeah.
And the Indian badminton duo of Satwik Siraj Rankirti and Chirag Shetty are making waves at the India Open.
They've been on fire, winning their matches decisively. Their aggressive playing style and ability to adapt their strategies make them a real force to be reckoned with on the international scene.
It's exciting to see Indian athletes making their mark on the global stage. But we've also got some intriguing news from Jammu and Kashmir. A mysterious illness has baffled doctors and has already claimed 16 lives.
It's a worrying situation. Tests haven't been able to pinpoint the cause, ruling out common infections. Now experts are starting to suspect something called neurotoxins could be involved.
That sounds pretty scary. What are neurotoxins exactly?
They're substances that can damage the nervous system. It's still early days, but this raises serious concerns about the health and safety of the people in that village.
It definitely sounds like something that needs urgent attention. On a brighter note, India's Paralympians were recently honored with Arjuna Awards at the Rashtrapati Bhavan.
It was a proud moment for the country, celebrating their incredible achievements. These athletes have overcome so much to reach this level, and their stories are truly inspiring. But, while reading through these articles, one thing that struck me is how India seems to be balancing on this tightrope between tradition and modernity.
Yeah, it really does. Take the Kumbh Mela, for example. It's this massive Hindu gathering, and one article really delved into the role of warrior ascetics, these figures who are almost like a living embodiment of ancient traditions.
Warrior ascetics. That sounds almost like a contradiction in terms.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The article described them as having this raw masculine energy, naked, covered in ash with matted hair carrying staffs. They belong to these groups called akharas, which are like ancient gyms or training grounds. It's a side of Hinduism we don't often hear about. Usually it's all about temples, gods, devotional songs. So what's the significance of these warrior ascetics?
Well, they represent a much older, more primal form of Hinduism, rooted in ritual and displays of power. The article traced their lineage back to this figure named Adi Shankaracharya, who was really instrumental in popularizing this whole philosophical system called Vedanta way back in the 8th century.
So their roots go deep. How does that tie into the Kumbh Mela and this idea of tradition versus modernity?
Well, the article argued that the history of these akharas is really deeply intertwined with the history of Hinduism itself. Apparently, the stories of Adi Shankaracharya's travels and struggles and debates weren't actually written down until much later, in the 13th century, by Brahmin scholars during the Vijayanagar Empire. And the reason they did this, according to the article, is that they saw Hinduism as being under threat from the arrival of Turks from Central Asia.
So a clash of cultures.
Exactly. The article suggested that these new invaders weren't just after wealth or power, they wanted to change the existing culture. It was almost like a clash of civilizations.
It's fascinating how these historical tensions are still reflected in events like the Kumbh Mela. It's a reminder that tradition and modernity aren't always separate. They can coexist and even influence each other.
Absolutely. And speaking of clashes and influences, with Trump back in the White House, there's a lot of talk about what his second term will mean, not just for America, but for the whole world.
When you mentioned tradition versus modernity, it made me think about how Trump often portrays himself as this disruptor, shaking up the establishment. Is that what you're seeing in these articles?
There's definitely that element. One article talked about this tension between Trump and what he calls the deep state.
The deep state.
Yeah, this network of Bureaucrats, political and financial elites, defense contractors, media moguls who he believes hold too much power.
So he sees them as the guardians of the old order, and he's the one trying to break it down.
Exactly. And according to this article, he's planning some pretty radical moves. He wants to slash government spending on bureaucracy by cutting the federal workforce by something like 75%.
Wow, that's a huge reduction. What else is he planning?
He also wants to decentralize power in Washington, D.C. By moving government departments to different cities across the U.S., it's like he's trying to dismantle the power structures that he believes are holding America back.
It sounds like a recipe for some serious upheaval in American politics.
Yeah.
And what about his foreign policy? Any clues about how that might play out?
Well, the article suggested that he's looking to build relationships with leaders who share his conservative vision and who are willing to challenge the deep state in their own countries. It's like he's trying to create a global network of like-minded disruptors.
That's a really interesting way to put it. It makes you wonder how other countries will respond to this approach.
Absolutely. And on a completely different note, remember the Saif Ali Khan stabbing incident we talked about? Well, there's been a lot of discussion about the reaction to the crime and how it reflects certain societal trends.
What kind of trends?
Well, one article pointed out how some people have been quick to blame outsiders and scapegoat particular communities. They even cited comments by actress Ravina Tandon, who blamed the hawker mafia, encroachers, and land grabbers.
Those terms often carry a lot of baggage, don't they?
Exactly. The article argued that these terms are often used to demonize people who come from outside Maharashtra, creating a climate of fear and prejudice.
It's a reminder that when these high-profile crimes happen, it's easy to jump to conclusions, look for easy answers. And sadly, it's often marginalized groups who end up being targeted.
It's a worrying trend. Now, shifting gears to a topic that's always close to my heart, education. There's been a lot of talk about India's workforce and how it's adapting to the demands of the global economy.
And how are we doing? Are we keeping up?
Well, there's good news and bad news. The good news is that a recent report, the QS World Future Skills Index, ranked India second only to the U.S. in terms of being ready to recruit for advanced digital and green technologies.
That sounds promising. So India is well positioned to take advantage of the growing tech sector.
In theory, yes. But here's the catch. The same report also highlighted a serious skills gap in India. It seems there's a disconnect between what companies need and the skills that graduates are coming out of college with.
So on the one hand, we've got companies looking for people with these advanced tech skills. But our education system isn't quite producing enough of them.
Exactly. It's a big challenge. The article argued that India needs a major overhaul of its education system, one that focuses on equipping students with the skills they'll need for the jobs of the future.
It's almost like we need to future-proof our workforce. What kind of changes are they suggesting?
Well, the emphasis is on moving beyond just rote learning, focusing on things like critical thinking, problem-solving, creativity. We need graduates who can adapt to the rapidly changing demands of the global economy.
It makes sense. Now let's turn our attention to the Middle East, where the situation in Gaza has been making headlines. There's been talk of a ceasefire. What's the latest on that front?
Well, there is a glimmer of hope, but it's very fragile. A ceasefire agreement has been reached, but it's really just the first step in a very long and difficult process.
What led to this ceasefire? Was it pressure from the international community?
It seems like a combination of factors played a role. There was definitely pressure from the international community, but there were also domestic political considerations for both sides. And who knows, maybe even the unpredictability of the new Trump administration played a part. No one's quite sure what to expect from him yet.
So a mix of internal and external pressures brought them to the table, but you said it's a fragile ceasefire. What are the potential roadblocks to lasting peace?
The article I read highlighted two main challenges. Firstly, there's Netanyahu's political ambitions. He's under a lot of pressure to deliver results, and that could push him towards taking a hard line. Secondly, there's Hamas's intransigence. They have their own ideology and their own objectives, and those might not align with the compromises needed for peace.
So it's a delicate balancing act between political pragmatism and ideological convictions. Are there any signs that either side might be willing to budge?
That's hard to say. There are reports that both Israel and Hamas are using this ceasefire as a chance to regroup and rearm, which suggests that deep down the underlying tensions haven't really been addressed.
It's a reminder that achieving lasting peace requires more than just stopping the fighting. It requires tackling the root causes of the conflict and building trust between the parties.
Exactly. Now let's switch gears to a topic that's been generating a lot of debate, the whole issue of obesity and how we view body image.
It's a topic that's constantly evolving, with new research and perspectives emerging all the time. What's caught your attention?
Well, one article really challenged the way we've been using body mass index, or BMI, as the sole indicator of health. It argues that reducing health to just a number on a scale can be misleading and even harmful.
BMI has been the standard for so long, it's hard to imagine anything else.
Right. But the article pointed out that BMI doesn't take into account individual variations in things like body composition, genetics, socioeconomic conditions, habits, all these factors that contribute to overall health.
So it's basically saying we need a more nuanced and personalized approach to health, rather than just relying on a one-size-fits-all metric like BMI.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just the physical. The article also talked about how harmful it can be to perpetuate these myths about what a healthy or fit person should look like. Often we equate thinness with health and fitness, which can lead to body shaming, eating disorders, and all sorts of other problems.
It's definitely a conversation that needs to happen. We need to be more critical of these narrow definitions of health and beauty. Did the article touch on any specific examples of how these misconceptions play out in real life?
Yes, they talked about the misuse of certain medications. Apparently, some people are using medications that are meant for conditions like diabetes as quick fix weight loss solutions.
That sounds incredibly risky. Are there any serious consequences to doing that?
Absolutely. These medications can have serious side effects, and using them for weight loss without proper medical supervision is incredibly dangerous.
It's a reminder that there are no shortcuts to health and well-being. Speaking of which, let's talk about another area that's crucial for well-being, especially in these uncertain economic times, financial management. It's a topic that's always on people's minds. What insights did you glean from the articles?
Well, one article delved into the concept of countercyclical fiscal policy. It's basically a strategy that governments use to try and smooth out the bumps in the economic road.
That sounds pretty complex. Can you break it down for us?
Sure. Imagine the economy as this roller coaster going up and down. Countercyclical fiscal policy is like the government trying to flatten out those ups and downs. So when the economy is slowing down, the government would spend more, maybe on infrastructure projects to stimulate growth.
And when the economy is doing well, they would cut back on spending.
Exactly. That helps prevent the economy from overheating and potentially crashing. The article argued that given the current economic slowdown in India, the government should increase spending, especially on infrastructure.
But isn't India already dealing with a high fiscal deficit?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that just make things worse?
That's a valid concern. The article acknowledged that India needs to reduce its debt and deficit, but it emphasized that this shouldn't come at the cost of much-needed economic stimulus. It's a delicate balancing act for policymakers.
It sounds like a tricky situation to navigate. Now, there's been some talk about a company called 197 Communications, the parent company of Paytm. It seems they've been in a bit of trouble with the regulators.
Yes, there have been allegations that they violated some regulatory norms. 7 former directors and the compliance officer of the company ended up paying a hefty sum to SEBI as part of a settlement.
So SEBI is like the watchdog of the stock market.
Exactly. It stands for the Securities and Exchange Board of India. They're responsible for regulating the securities market and protecting investors. While the exact details of the violations haven't been made public, it highlights how important it is for companies to operate within the rules, especially in a fast-growing sector like fintech.
It's a reminder that even in the world of digital finance, you can't just play fast and loose with the rules. On a more positive note, Wipro seems to be doing quite well. They've reported a big jump in their profits for the third quarter.
They have. Their profits exceeded all the analysts' expectations. It seems their strategic focus on things like digital transformation and cloud services is paying off.
So they're riding the digital wave. What else is new with Wipro?
Well, they've also announced plans to hire a lot more freshers in the coming financial year. It seems they're feeling optimistic about the future of the IT sector.
That's good news for all the aspiring techies out there. Okay, let's take a detour into the world of Bollywood. Any interesting new releases?
Yes, the second season of Patal Lok has just dropped, and the reviews are glowing. They're saying it's even better than the first season, which was already a huge hit.
What's so great about it?
The reviewers praise the show's sharp writing, compelling characters, and intricate plot lines. It's a police procedural, but it also weaves in social commentary and delves into the complexities of the human psyche.
So it's entertaining, but it also makes you think, where's this season set?
This time, it's set in Nagaland, exploring the world of politics, insurgency, and the search for identity. It's getting a lot of buzz.
Sounds intriguing. What about movies? Anything catching your eye?
There's a new film called Pede that seems to be a powerful exploration of the human spirit in the face of adversity. It's set against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown, showing how ordinary people struggled and showed resilience in such extraordinary circumstances.
Given what we've all been through in the past few years, it sounds like a film that could really resonate with audiences.
I think so too. The reviewers praised its realistic portrayal of the pandemic's impact and the powerful performances of the cast.
It sounds like a film that's both timely and timeless. Now we've got a film about the emergency, a period in Indian history that's still hotly debated. What's the verdict on that one?
Well, the review I read was pretty critical. They argued that the film oversimplifies a very complex period and presents a rather biased view of events.
So, not exactly historically accurate?
That seems to be the consensus. They especially criticized the portrayal of Indira Gandhi, saying it doesn't capture the nuances of her character or the political climate of the time. It's a reminder that when it comes to historical dramas, entertainment shouldn't come at the cost of historical responsibility.
It's a fine line to walk. Now, how about something a little lighter? Any feel-good movies out there?
There's a heartwarming film called The Kindness of Strangers that celebrates the bond between siblings. It follows two brothers as they retrace their Jewish heritage by visiting Holocaust sites in Europe.
That sounds like a powerful and emotional journey. What did the reviewers have to say?
They praised the film's sensitive handling of a difficult subject matter and the performances of the two lead actors, Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin. It's a film that's both moving and informative, reminding us of the importance of remembering history, honoring those who suffered, and cherishing the bonds of family.
Those are certainly important themes. Okay, let's talk sports. What's happening in the world of Indian badminton?
The duo of Satwik Siraj Rankireddy and Shrag Shetty are continuing their winning streak on the international circuit. They're a young, dynamic pair who have been steadily climbing the rankings.
What's the secret to their success?
They have a unique playing style that combines aggressive attacks with solid defense, and their on-court chemistry is fantastic. They're definitely a team to watch.
They sound like a formidable duo. And what about PV Sindhu? Any updates on her?
She recently competed in a tournament, but unfortunately lost in the quarterfinals. It wasn't her best performance, but even in defeat, there were flashes of her signature brilliance and fighting spirit.
It's a reminder that even the best athletes face setbacks. It's how they bounce back that defines them. Speaking of overcoming challenges, India's Paralympians continue to inspire. A group of them were recently honored with Arjuna Awards at the Rashtrapati Bhavan.
It was a well-deserved recognition of their remarkable achievements. One story that really stood out was that of Thula Samathi, a silver medalist shuttler, and her father, Muruga-san. He's been her coach and biggest supporter throughout her journey.
It's amazing to see that kind of dedication and support. What's their story?
While Murugesan works as a daily wage laborer and has made countless sacrifices to help his daughter pursue her dreams, it's a testament to the power of family and a truly inspiring story of resilience.
It's incredible how they've overcome so much to achieve their goals. Were there any other heartwarming moments from the event?
Yes. There was another touching moment when Coach Deepali Deshpande was awarded the Dronacharya Award alongside her trainee, Swapnil Kusale, who won bronze in rifle shooting. It was a celebration of both individual achievement and the vital role that coaches play in nurturing talent.
It's a reminder that success is often a team effort, with mentors and supporters playing a crucial role. Now, shifting gears to a topic that's always relevant, the role of money in politics. It seems that political parties are increasingly resorting to populist measures to win over voters.
It's a trend that's been growing for a while now. The article I read called it broad-spectrum populism, where parties across the political spectrum are offering freebies and making these extravagant promises to secure votes.
So it's not just about ideology anymore. It's about who can offer the most appealing handouts.
Exactly. And the article argued that this is driven by several factors. You've got the changing demographics of the electorate, the growing influence of social media, and the decline of traditional party loyalties. It's a reflection of how the political landscape is evolving.
But is this approach sustainable in the long run? Are we just kicking the can down the road by making promises we can't keep?
That's the big question. The article expressed concerns about whether this trend is truly serving the best interests of the country or just catering to short-term electoral gains.
It's a debate that's happening not just in India, but all over the world. Look at the rise of figures like Donald Trump in the U.S., who tapped into populist sentiments to gain power. It seems like a global trend.
It does, doesn't it? Now let's delve into a world that's often shrouded in secrecy. the world of intelligence agencies. There's been a lot of talk about Nat GRE lately. Do you know much about it?
I've heard the name, but I'm not entirely sure what it is.
Nat GRE stands for National Intelligence Grid. It's basically this massive database that the Ministry of Home Affairs has been compiling. It contains all sorts of data from various sources, immigration records, banking details, travel history, phone data, you name it.
It sounds like a powerful tool for surveillance. Who has access to it?
Well, recently, the Delhi Police Commissioner authorized district deputy commissioners to use NatGRAD to help them combat crime in the capital.
So they're expanding its use. While it has the potential to help prevent crime, it also raises concerns about privacy violations. It's a tricky balance.
It is. It's like walking a tightrope between security and individual liberties. Speaking of balancing acts, how are the trade negotiations between India and the European Union progressing?
It's a complex relationship with both sides having their own interests and priorities. What are the latest developments?
Well, it seems the talks are moving forward. India's Commerce and Industry Minister, Piyush Goyal, is scheduled to go to Brussels to continue the discussions, but there are still some sticking points.
What are the main areas of disagreement?
It seems like both sides have different aspirations. India wants greater access to the EU market for its goods and services, while the EU is pushing for stronger intellectual property protection and a more level playing field for its companies.
It sounds like a classic negotiation scenario. What do you think the outcome will be?
It's hard to say. The outcome will depend on what compromises both sides are willing to make. Whatever the result, it'll have a big impact on the economic relationship between India and the EU.
Let's hope they can find common ground. Now, Ashok Leyland, the commercial vehicle company, has been making headlines with its ambitious expansion plans. What's the latest on that front?
They've just made a big move. By entering the entry-level light commercial vehicle, LCV segment, it's a new market for them, and they're targeting small businesses and individual entrepreneurs with a new product called Safi.
So they're expanding their customer base. What's their strategy for this new segment?
They're positioning Safi as a reliable and affordable option. It's part of their overall strategy of aggressive growth, both within India and internationally.
And where are they looking to expand internationally?
They've got their sights set on the ASEAN region, particularly Southeast Asia. They see a lot of growth potential there.
It sounds like they're not afraid to take risks and go after new opportunities. Another company that's betting big on India is HSBC. What are they up to?
HSBC is doubling down on its presence in India, aiming to become the leading international bank in the country.
That's a bold goal. How are they planning to achieve it?
They're laser-focused on the wealth management market, which is booming in India. They're creating tailored products and services for affluent Indians, showing their confidence in India's long-term economic growth.
It's a fascinating story of ambition and confidence. Now let's talk about a case that's been making headlines for all the wrong reasons, the Religar Enterprises fraud case.
It's a story of alleged corporate greed and deception. The former promoters of the company, the Singh brothers, are accused of financial mismanagement and siphoning off funds.
So basically, they're accused of using the company's money for their own personal gain.
That's the gist of it. A Delhi court recently framed charges of criminal conspiracy and cheating against the Singh brothers, so the trial can now proceed.
It's a step towards holding them accountable for their alleged actions. What are the potential implications of this case?
Well, the outcome of this trial could have a big impact on corporate governance and investor confidence in India. It's a reminder that financial crimes can have far-reaching consequences.
It's a story that's likely to unfold over the coming months and years. Now, in Pakistan, there's been a dramatic turn of events with the sentencing of former Prime Minister Imran Khan.
He's been sentenced to 14 years in jail on corruption charges. It's sent shockwaves through Pakistani politics.
What are the charges against him?
He's accused of illegal land dealings and abusing his position for personal enrichment. It's a case of alleged corruption at the highest level of government.
It's a reminder that even those in positions of power are not above the law. What do you think the long-term impact of this conviction will be?
It's hard to say for sure. It could further destabilize Pakistani politics and raise questions about the country's future direction.
It's a situation worth keeping an eye on. Now, let's shift our focus to the final frontier space exploration. What's grabbing your attention in that realm?
There's been a lot of discussion about something called space weather and its impact on satellites and spacecraft.
Space weather. That sounds interesting. Can you explain what it is?
It refers to the conditions in space that are influenced by solar activity, like solar flares and coronal mass ejections. Basically, it's bursts of energy and particles from the sun that can mess with our technology in space.
So it's like the sun throwing a tantrum and disrupting our space gadgets.
That's a good way to put it. One article focused on how space weather can make precision docking maneuvers in space really difficult.
Docking maneuvers. Those are the ones where two spacecraft have to connect in space, right?
Exactly. It's an incredibly complex procedure, and space weather can make it even more challenging. It can disrupt communication systems, blind sensors, and throw off the spacecraft's position.
So it's a real obstacle to successful space missions. And I imagine as we get more ambitious with space exploration, understanding and mitigating space weather will become even more crucial.
You're absolutely right. Speaking of ambitious events, the preparations for the Los Angeles Olympics are in full swing. But there were some concerns about the impact of those devastating wildfires that hit California recently.
It's understandable. Those fires caused so much damage and disruption. Are the games still going ahead?
It seems like they are. The Olympic organizers are confident they can overcome the challenges, and they've received a big boost from Donald Trump, who's promised his full support to ensure the games are safe and successful.
So a political endorsement to help smooth things over. Let's hope the games can go ahead as planned. There's supposed to be a celebration of human achievement and global unity, and it would be a shame if they were overshadowed by tragedy.
I agree. Now let's talk about a topic that's of vital importance to India energy security. There's been a lot of discussion about the impact of the new U.S. sanctions on Russian oil.
India has become quite reliant on Russian oil imports in recent years. How could these sanctions affect us?
It could force India to find other sources of oil, which might be more expensive or less reliable. It could be a blow to India's energy security and economy.
So, a potential headache for policymakers. What options does India have?
Well, it depends on how strictly the incoming Trump administration decides to enforce these sanctions. India might be able to negotiate exemptions or waivers, but it's a geopolitical puzzle with big economic stakes.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And while we're talking about geopolitics, what's the latest on India's relationship with the Taliban regime in Afghanistan?
It's a complex situation. India is trying to walk this fine line between engaging with the Taliban and voicing concerns about their policies.
It's a tricky balancing act. Can you give some examples of how India is approaching this?
On the one hand, India has reopened its embassy in Kabul, though with a limited staff, and is providing humanitarian aid to Afghanistan. That's a sign of pragmatic engagement.
But on the other hand,
India has expressed deep concerns about the Taliban's lack of inclusivity, particularly their treatment of women and ethnic minorities. It's about upholding certain values and principles.
it's a tough situation. Do you think India can maintain this balancing act?
It's difficult to predict. It requires careful diplomacy and a willingness to engage in dialogue, even with those whose views you might disagree with.
It's a reminder of the complexities of international relations. Now, let's turn our attention to a success story that's been making waves in India Unified Payments Interface, or UPI.
UPI has become so popular in India, and the CEO of the National Payments Corporation of India, or NPCI, is incredibly optimistic about its future growth.
What are they predicting?
They believe UPI transactions could increase tenfold from their current level.
That's a bold prediction. What's fueling this optimism?
They cited several factors: the increasing use of smartphones, the government's push for digital payments, and the convenience and affordability of UPI. It's a perfect storm of technology, policy, and consumer behavior.
And what does this mean for India's economy?
Well, this growth could be a game changer. It could promote financial inclusion, boost digital commerce, and reduce our reliance on cash. It's a win-win situation.
It's great to see Indian innovation making such a positive impact. But not all stories in the world of digital finance are so positive. There's been a recent cyber attack on WazirX, a cryptocurrency exchange.
Yes, it's a reminder that even in the digital world, security is paramount. Hackers targeted one of WazirX's multi-signature wallets and managed to steal a significant amount of cryptocurrency. WazirX has frozen the stolen assets, but it's a big blow and highlights the growing threat of cybercrime in the world of finance.
It's a reminder that as we become more reliant on digital platforms, we need to be vigilant about security and take steps to protect ourselves.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about a company that's been doing well on the stock market Reliance Industries.
They seem to have weathered the economic storm pretty well. What's the latest?
Their stock has been on an upward climb. driven by strong performance in their retail and oil-to-chemicals businesses. Analysts are optimistic about Reliance's prospects, citing their diverse portfolio, strong leadership, and aggressive growth strategy.
So it seems like a good time to be a Reliance shareholder.
Yeah.
And what about Tata Motors? They've been in the news recently with some big changes.
They have. They've announced plans to split their commercial vehicle and passenger vehicle businesses into separate entities.
That's a big restructuring. Why are they doing this?
They believe it will unlock more value for their shareholders. It will allow each business to focus on its core strengths and pursue growth opportunities more effectively. It's a strategic move to become more efficient and competitive.
It'll be interesting to see how these two new companies perform in the market. Now, there's a new trend emerging in the world of luxury lab-grown diamonds. They seem to be shaking up the traditional diamond industry.
They are. Lab-grown diamonds are chemically and physically identical to mined diamonds, but they're often more affordable and ethically sourced. That's a big draw for consumers who are budget conscious or concerned about the environmental and social impact of mining.
So they're appealing to a new generation of diamond buyers.
Exactly. And as the technology improves and production costs go down, we can expect lab-grown diamonds to become even more popular. It's a potential game changer for the diamond industry.
It's fascinating to see how innovation is disrupting even the most traditional industries. Now, you mentioned earlier that you're passionate about storytelling. What kind of stories have caught your attention recently?
Well, I came across this article about how brands are using the Kumbh Mela not just as a religious gathering, but as a massive marketing opportunity. They're using all sorts of creative strategies to connect with consumers.
So it's not just about sadhus and pilgrims anymore. It's also about brands vying for attention.
It is. They're using a mix of traditional advertising, experiential marketing, and social media campaigns. The article highlighted how some brands are tapping into the religious sentiments and cultural significance of the Kumbh to create emotional connections with consumers.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act. How are they ensuring they don't come across as disrespectful or exploitative?
Well, some brands are going beyond just marketing and engaging in social initiatives that benefit the pilgrims. They're providing services, supporting local communities, and generally trying to leave a positive impact.
So it's a more holistic approach that combines marketing with corporate social responsibility.
Exactly. And it seems to be working. It's creating a positive brand image and building loyalty. It's a reminder that effective marketing isn't just about selling products. It's about building relationships and connecting with people on a deeper level.
It's a valuable lesson.
Yeah.
Now, back in the world of politics, the Delhi Assembly elections are heating up. What are the key issues that are dominating the campaign?
It's a mix of the usual bread and butter issues: development, infrastructure, education, healthcare, and law and order. But there are also some more contentious issues being debated, like the Uniform Civil Code and the ongoing power struggle between the central and state governments.
So a mix of local and national concerns are shaping the political discourse. What do you think will be the deciding factors in this election?
It's hard to say. Voters will weigh the performance of the incumbent AAP government against the promises being made by the BJP. It'll be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
It's a reminder that politics is always a dynamic and unpredictable force. Now let's talk about the Indian economy. The Reserve Bank of India has released some new data on foreign direct investment, or FDI.
Yes, and the numbers are encouraging. Both inward and outward FDI have increased significantly. Yeah, it's a vote of confidence in India's growth potential. And the increase in outward FDI shows that Indian companies are becoming more globally competitive, looking for opportunities to expand overseas.
So it's a two-way street, with investment flowing both in and out of India. It's a sign of how integrated India is becoming with the global economy. What's driving this trend?
I think several factors are at play. India has a large and growing market, a skilled workforce, and a government that's been implementing policies to attract foreign investment. It seems like this momentum is likely to continue.
It's encouraging to hear such a positive outlook for the Indian economy. Now let's talk about a company that's doing things differently and making a mark in the jewelry market, Indria.
Indria is tapping into that growing trend of lab-grown diamonds. They're creating a new segment of consumers by offering this wide range of designs and styles that appeal to, modern tastes.
So they're targeting a younger, more fashion-conscious audience.
Exactly. And they're using technology to enhance the customer experience, offering online consultations and personalized recommendations.
It's a smart approach. They're combining innovation with a customer-centric focus.
They are. And their success shows that there's room for disruption and new business models in the jewelry industry. It's a reminder that companies need to be adaptable, innovative, and responsive to changing consumer preferences to thrive in today's dynamic market.
Speaking of changing preferences, what's happening in the Indian automotive industry? You always have such interesting insights into that sector.
Well, one article caught my eye. It talked about how car colors are changing in India.
Car colors? I wouldn't have thought that was such a big deal.
It might seem trivial, but it actually reflects broader shifts in consumer tastes. The article noted that in the past, Indian car buyers were more adventurous with color choices, opting for bright and bold shades. But now there's this growing preference for more subtle, sophisticated colors.
So we're moving from flashy to classy.
I'm going to say that. The article attributed the shift to several factors, including evolving consumer preferences, the influence of global trends, and a greater emphasis on brand value over individual expression.
It's a sign of how the Indian car market is maturing, and consumer aspirations are changing.
Exactly. We can expect car manufacturers to offer a wider range of sophisticated color options to cater to these evolving tastes.
It's amazing how something as simple as car color can reflect broader societal and cultural shifts. Now let's talk about a topic that's always on people's minds, personal finance. With the economic uncertainty we're facing, what are some strategies people are using to manage their money?
Well, one article highlighted the rising popularity of hybrid funds as an investment option. They're a type of mutual fund that invests in a mix of equity and debt instruments, offering investors a balance between risk and return.
So it's about spreading the risk and hopefully minimizing potential losses.
Exactly. Hybrid funds are particularly well suited for volatile markets because they offer a degree of stability amidst market fluctuations. As the Indian economy navigates this period of uncertainty, hybrid funds are likely to become even more attractive to investors seeking a balanced approach.
It's a reminder that financial planning isn't one size fits all. There are different investment options to suit different risk appetites and financial goals. And speaking of financial planning, everyone's eagerly awaiting the upcoming union budget. What are the key expectations this year?
Given the economic challenges we're facing, there are calls for increased spending on infrastructure, education, and healthcare. People are also looking for measures to boost employment and revitalize the rural economy.
So a focus on stimulating growth and addressing pressing social needs.
Yes, but there's also the concern about the fiscal deficit and the need for fiscal consolidation. The finance minister has this delicate balancing act to perform supporting growth while maintaining fiscal discipline. It'll be interesting to see what vision she lays out for the Indian economy.
It's a lot to juggle. Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground today, from politics and the economy to sports, entertainment, and even space weather.
It's been a fascinating journey through the complexities, challenges, and opportunities that shape contemporary India.
And as always, it's left us with more questions than answers, prompting us to ponder the future trajectory of this incredible nation. What stands out to you the most from all the news we've discussed?
For me, it's the resilience and adaptability of the Indian people. Whether it's athletes overcoming challenges, businesses adapting to new realities, or policymakers navigating these complex situations, there's a sense of determination and a spirit of innovation that shines through. That gives me hope for the future.
I agree. There's a dynamism and an energy in India that's truly inspiring. And as we continue to grapple with these complex issues, it's through thoughtful dialogue, a thirst for knowledge, and a willingness to engage with different perspectives that we can truly understand the nuances of this ever-evolving nation.
Well said.
Until next time, keep exploring, stay informed, and namaste. Namaste. The AI Samachar, 18th January 2025. One can email to theisamachar@gmail.com for branding and advertisements.